We all want a better, more fulfilling, and thriving life. So this podcast is documentation of our journey towards striving and reaching these goals.
We're here to have fun, to experience, to adapt, to embrace change, and to rediscover who we are because we get to decide.
And though self-discovery will look different for each individual, our mission here at the Soul BBQ Tribe is to share some ways that we found have worked for us.
Here we engage in open dialogue conversations that provide tools and insights designed to better assist personal growth on various levels in a variety of ways.
It's time to kick back. You're invited to the barbecue. Soul BBQ, a conscious kickback.
Dana?
Yeah, I'm liking like this 90s look. Summertime's coming, so it's just giving like we about to go to a block party. We ready.
We
We
might.
chilling.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually bought recently, I'm on my little lock journey and stuff. So the girls are growing and flowing, but I bought all these like silk, these are like a satin bandana, so it's not
Oh,
cotton. Because when you have locks, one thing you got to watch out for is lint. And I didn't know this whole lint debacle.
I didn't know that either. Lint?
Lint gets caught in locks like crazy. It's my like
Oh.
arch nemesis now. Like, leave me alone. So anytime I'm chilling at the house, or really most of the time, I just have my hair covered now for the
Right.
most part.
Relatable.
Yeah, unless I'm unless I'm going like out, I try to get it covered. So anyway, I didn't want to get the regular cotton bandanas because I don't obviously they would have a lot of lint on them.
Right.
Like defeats the purpose.
Gotta do better.
So I found satin ones. There's people make satin bandanas. And so I really like these. So I appreciate that. Thank you. And your fit is too. You got the little hat backwards,
Thank
giving that
you.
90s vibe.
We trying to stay up.
Yeah. It just really adds something to the outfit, having something on your head. It can complete your outfit or
Right.
your look for sure.
Yeah, it just really ties everything together.
Mhm.
But speaking of tying things together,
Yes.
we have a new segment, guys, Romance Rewind.
Oh yeah, and then also you're listening to Soul BBQ.
Oh, you know what? That might be a better place to start.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, how's it going?
Voice change. Welcome to another episode of Soul BBQ.
A conscious kickback. I'm one of your hosts here, Steven.
And I am Kelsey. So lovely for you to be with us today. What were you getting into, Steven?
Yeah, so now that we got the intro out of the way, we can get back into what we were talking about. So we have a new segment called Romance Rewind, and I was talking about how we're gonna be tying some things up, and I wanted to ask you, what's something tied to you that is toxic as far as a trait would go?
So my toxic trait, my red flag.
Yes. If you want to share.
I don't have any. I was actually created immaculately. No, I'm just kidding.
You know what? Relatable. I think we have a lot in common.
Let me think on this for a second. For real.
I know.
I'm like, what is it? I think I'm thinking about the feedback that I've heard and not what I feel like it is. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to like think back to the feedback that I've gotten from people.
You're actually gonna listen to those reviews?
I am. They're important. I feel like my toxic trait is being more aloof sometimes in situations, or like you know what I mean, like pulled back emotionally, not really showing all of my emotions, or for a long period of time I didn't really cry. I had a relationship and my ex used to always be like, man, you really never cry, like what's going on, like you never cried. I'm like, I don't know, I just that trait happened because I couldn't get in touch with a certain part of myself really to allow myself to feel. But the reason why it was still toxic is because doing that really put up a wall between me
Mm.
and other people, like not showing that emotional side of me.
Yeah.
I think it led to a lot of other things because I, didn't address it back then and things like that. But I would say that that trait is still kind of there because there are times where I can be more nonchalant than desired, I would
Right.
imagine.
Yeah. But the
So
point is, the difference now is you are aware of it.
yeah,
So you know how
yeah,
to navigate a little bit better emotionally.
I do. Yeah,
Yeah.
whether I care or not is another. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. A lot of
That's
times I
real.
care, but sometimes I'm like, sounds like a you thing, not a me
Hello.
thing. But again, things that we're working on, and it's definitely something that I'm aware of. So yeah.
Nice.
But what about you? What is your red flag? What's your toxic trait?
Oh, see, I was gonna say actually like the opposite, but when you said like
Hmm.
red flag, I don't feel like what I'm doing is a red flag
Of
personally.
course not. Ah, of course it's not.
So I guess on the other spectrum,
Mm-hmm.
I'm very empathetic. So like
Mm.
when I'm riding with you, I get like super emotional. So I can
Oh,
get like
passionate.
jealous if,
Mm-hmm.
I can get jealous. I mean, nothing crazy. I'm not gonna like, attack anybody, but
Mm-hmm.
I can like I guess if I'm getting jealous or I'm feeling like I'm not getting the energy that I'm putting in
Mm-hmm.
back on some kind of level,
Yeah.
then I just kind of makes me want to like block the people and just like not just like fuck with you. When now I'm learning
Mm.
to, if you're feeling some kind of way, maybe bring it up to them and address it because everybody
Yeah,
has their own perspective. Maybe you're being paranoid, maybe you're over engaging,
exactly.
So I'm finding the line to have that balance between intuition and paranoia. So
Ooh,
it's a balance.
okay. It's a fine line, it sounds like.
Yeah.
No, I think that that's a good one. And I feel like it's really interesting how you brought up jealousy being able to come from, because when you first said empathy, I was like, that's not a bad thing, very emotional and very, you can feel everything, right, that's going on. But then
Hmm.
sometimes it's ignited and then that passion comes and then there is the jealousy and all of that. But like what you were saying, it's really about how you deal with things because it could be a different perspective. So I feel like that's really great. When is the last time, or I don't want to say when's the last time, but like, I guess
What?
putting it a little bit more solid, when have you felt this come up and like, how did you
Ooh.
realistically deal with it?
Um, I guess the honest answer would be, I would say within the last month.
Hmm.
How I
Hmm.
how I dealt with it. Um, I found someone new, but
Oh gosh, cut the tapes.
you're right. Okay.
This is
No,
not what this is about. No, I'm
I
just
know.
kidding. Go ahead.
No, I mean, how did I deal with it? I just kind of I felt the energy shift. I felt myself. I was like, I've been feeling so like bubbly and light. Why am I feeling a little heavier? What's
Yeah.
going on? I had a little check-in. I have these check-ins
Okay.
with myself when I feel like something's wrong or I've been wrong. And I just try to
Hmm.
make sure like, did I do anything to contribute to this or is this on
Right.
someone else's like bad?
Okay, so there's a lot of reflections that go into it, questioning yourself. And then when
Right.
you get the answers to those questions, what do you do with that information?
It depends. Sometimes we might need to plot a revenge plot. Sometimes we
Mm,
might need to just let people go.
okay.
It just, it varies. I try to do the second one more so, but
Yeah.
work in progress. Sometimes people got to get this fire.
That's real though. Again, self-awareness. At least you know. At least you know
Right.
what's going on, right? So I
Yeah.
can applaud that. I can really appreciate that. And it also brings us into, what we would like to talk more about today
Yeah.
with um I guess kind of these can be toxic-ish traits depending on how you look at it, but we're diving into shadow work and the realm of shadow work today.
Shadow
quite a
work.
few times. Yeah, I've been asked so much like what the hell is that? And it sounds like maybe that's where you were going.
No, no, it is. Yeah. I've been noticing shadow work is like a really big buzzword in the community, a
Yeah.
spiritual community in the last 2 years or so. Everyone's trying to get under wraps of themselves and whatnot. So
Mhm.
when
Yeah.
you bring up shadow work, what do you mean by that?
Yeah. So there's a couple different ways people go about this, and I think everything's gotten very spiritual, which is great to be in the spiritual realm. I think that there is a balance, kind of like you were talking about earlier, though, between that spiritual and then also
Practical?
figuring exactly practical, thinking about it in a practical way that you can
Mm-hmm.
actually do things in your life to life or your day to day, and
Mm-hmm.
not just me telling people find the light. That's how
Yeah.
you get, that's how this is resolved. So anyway, the shadow self the shadow archetype was actually created by Carl Jung, Jung. Jung, though, I think is how it's pronounced. And
Okay, yeah. Correct.
yeah, so he's a psychologist, but he was doing all of this work and came to find that we have certain pieces of ourselves, whether through childhood or in relationships or past experiences, that cause us to kind of repress certain pieces of ourselves and like push those pieces down
Okay.
instead of allowing them to be outward. So some of those might be kind of what you were just talking about, jealousy, anger, resentment, being judgmental is really big for a lot of people as well. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of pieces. So it's the pieces of yourself that doesn't feel like they could be widely accepted. So you keep them in the dark, such creating your shadow.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that. So what it kind of sounds to me is maybe your shadow work can have some, or just your shadow self is kind of
Mhm.
tied to your subconscious mind.
Absolutely. Yes. So all of the shadowy parts of you are going to live in the subconscious. And so a lot of time, excuse me, a lot of time, the shadow or the subconscious is the reason why you have certain habits too.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if someone has a lot of things that they're not dealing with because they're repressing, they're going to try to maybe run away from those emotions in from different ways, right? So being highly promiscuous or something like that, or let's say you do get jealous, right, of a partner
Yeah.
doing something, and then you're like, oh, well, yo, you want to be like that? Okay, well, I'm gonna show you I can pop my shit too, right?
Wow. You been at my phone? No, it's kidding.
And it might drive you to do some things that maybe you wouldn't outwardly really and consciously be proud of. You're like,
Yeah.
damn, I should probably work on that. Or you might go into it knowing that that's not great. Yeah.
But it kind of what happens is it's like when you have those subconscious triggers, it's kind of like when the trigger goes off, it's like a part of our brain that isn't conscious takes over, and it's like an
Yep.
automated routine of that
Mm-hmm.
behavior.
Yep. You
And
want to
it's
know
just
why?
why, please,
Your
please help us
so
out.
your shadow is honestly here, and I talk about this with clients. I don't really call it the shadow. I refer to it as your saboteurs. So,
Ooh. Hmm.
yeah, so when you're think of yourself as a driver on a bus, right? This is a little analogy.
Mm-hmm.
And you're the driver, but you have all of the seats behind you. You know how a usual bus looks, right?
Right.
And in that bus, you have certain passengers, and your passengers are put there to help you, to protect you. So if you're on a long cross country trip, and that thus is life, really, your passengers sometimes, when they feel like you might be in danger, they'll jump in to try to protect you. So those are your saboteurs a lot of times. Oh,
Mm.
things are getting a little uncomfortable, or I don't know what's going on here. Let me jump in, Steven. Let me take over for you. I'm going to protect you. I'm going to get you through this, because at some point in your life, it was probably necessary for you to have that type of response in order to protect yourself.
Yeah. So we learn just based off our previous behaviors on which saboteurs kind of take control in what moments.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's basically shadow work is getting to know those saboteurs a little bit more in depth and saying, okay, maybe working with that. All right, I know this happens when
Perfect.
this happens, so let me
Mm-hmm.
be aware of that, or
Right.
let that ride. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Depending on
Exactly.
the intent. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Beautiful analogy, by the way.
thank
Bless.
you. I appreciate that. And you're so right. That is what shadow work is about. It's identifying, it's getting to know, and then it's also integrating. And see this, I think that this is maybe something that people do that's a little bit of a mistake. You try to get rid of it, right?
Ooh.
Don't you it's not you getting rid of it. You can only have things can only be a shadow if they're not illuminated, right? So instead
Yeah.
of getting rid of it, because it's going to be a part of you, like, so we're talking about, we keep bringing up jealousy, right? As an example,
Mm-hmm.
instead of just saying like, I'm going to never be jealous again. That's clearly not possible. We're going to feel the way we feel. Honestly,
Yeah, we're
ev-
emotional beings.
we're
Yes.
emotional beings. Everyone is going to be jealous. Everyone's going to feel that, right? It's about identifying it. So when we talk about integration, we should be talking about speaking on it, right? So instead of, you moving on to the next person or whatever you're doing, it's having a conversation and saying like, "Hey, I'm feeling jealous. Like I'm actually feeling jealous right now." And talking through that and allowing that part of you to be seen. A part of that comes vulnerability, and vulnerability really helps us grow. It's through that discomfort.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah.
Mm.
What are your
Give me
thoughts?
give me a second, because I'm like processing this with my personal life going on,
Mm,
because I think a huge point that you were saying was the integration part, because in the past, especially when I first heard about the shadow work aspect, I
yeah.
really was under the umbrella that, okay, when I find these bad parts, I want to
Mm,
eradicate them. Let's get rid of
mm,
them. And
mhm.
then what I've noticed is when I was doing that, whatever habits or behaviors would actually
Get
amplify.
worse. Yep.
So,
Absolutely.
like, if I'm okay, this my reaction is to go to this vice because of this, and then I'm like, oh no, this is bad. Let me just
Mhm.
cut out everything. But
Mhm.
then a week or two later, I'm doing like double what I was doing before. Like for if
Yeah.
it's drinking or if it's
Yep.
something else, you know.
Y'all know what that could be. No, just kidding. Uh, but you know why though? So this is what you are talking about is what really everybody goes through. It's
Yeah.
because we start to look at it as something that is wrong with us, something
Mm-hmm.
that should be eliminated, like you said, eradicated, which by the way, I really like that word.
Thank you.
Uh, your vocabulary, you be just popping out with stuff.
Sometimes I got it.
You really do. So, but yeah, that's what most people do. Most people look at something and they say, "Oh, I don't need to be like this." But what happens when you do that, you're further repressing, right? Think about the tension that goes into it when you're pushing down, pushing down, pushing down, pushing down. If you had a trash can and you're just filling it, filling it, filling it, filling it, and then you keep trying to fill it and like, no, I'm just gonna put everything in here.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, it's gonna bust. You're not gonna be able to close it anymore,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's where that amplification comes from. That's where it's growing so much. It's like it's gonna get worse because you have to then do more work to conceal it,
Yeah. So what
right?
you resist will persist.
Okay, you come on, sound
Oh, okay.
bites. You on the sound bites?
No, I mean it's
Yeah.
it's so practical. So I have a question.
Yeah.
So I know you're saying, okay, don't if you find a dark side or you're aware of some of your negative traits,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't want to get rid of them exactly. You want to
Right.
embrace it. But
Mm-hmm.
what if those parts, maybe you're in denial about it, or
Mm-hmm.
you just really are afraid, or you hate looking
Mm-hmm.
into that? How
Mm-hmm.
would you then start to say, I want to improve, but I'm just
Yes.
so, I don't know, paralyzed by fear?
Ooh. Okay.
How do you move through that?
That's when, yeah. So I guess, and I wrote this down just to make sure I'm not kind of like missing some of the
Hmm.
steps that I usually use with people. So what you're talking about is like, I want to be better. I don't actually want to just sit with this and be like this and allow this to grow. I actually want to be better.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where challenging yourself comes in, right? That's where questioning yourself comes in. So if you do have a bout with maybe excessive drinking, let's just say that, because it might be something everyone can relate to,
Mm-hmm.
because you're trying not to deal with something, it's simply sitting with yourself and asking yourself, like, okay, well, I'm doing this because of a trigger, right? When that trigger happened, why did it happen? You know, what's going on inside of me truly that I feel an emotional charge about right now,
Right.
right? And then digging deeper into that. And so I actually have some example questions for you. So
Okay.
it's funny that we started talking about jealousy because jealousy is the example that I had written down. So it's just really crazy. So if you are someone who used to be very jealous, or is very jealous right now, and that can be in romance or friendships, because I have also experienced this. I used to be jealous of Steven hanging out with other people, or, you know, Steven and our other friend Tiffany doing something together. And I'm like, why the fuck wasn't I invited? Like,
Right.
where
Yeah.
was my invitation? Why y'all at midnight child? You know, and I'm not there. Like, you couldn't invite me, you
So you off base, you know.
know?
But yeah.
So, but I started to ask myself why, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why? So for me, when I think about that and I say why, it's because I thought it meant there was something wrong with me, that I needed to be excluded from what is going on, right? So you start to get these self-deprecating voices in your head, but people don't want to be around me, or they don't enjoy my company, or I'm not
Mm-hmm.
good enough because of XYZ. So that's what I did. And then you break it down further from there and saying, well, where is the trigger? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So how was I triggered? Well, I think I might be triggered by being left out, or I think I might be triggered by feeling unworthy of being in that space. Right? Okay, so now we're digging deeper because there's a
Ooh.
feeling of I'm unworthy that's happening, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So then you do that, and then you name the feelings that are going along with your trigger. So let me ask you this. When you have the thought in your head, I'm unworthy, or whatever you're thinking, when you do start to feel jealous, what feeling is associated with that for you? Like emotionally, emotional.
Uh, for this topic, I guess maybe inadequate.
So you're feeling
Um,
inadequate. Okay.
um, maybe something in me isn't shaping up. I
Mm.
also may feel confused. It's
Mm.
like it's like I'm feeling jealous, but
Yeah.
why? I thought we were so secure. Like why?
Mm.
I was so I thought we were like so locked in. How are you able
Yeah.
to then switch it and give me such a negative feeling?
Right. So there's some curiosity, there's some questioning that's
Mm-hmm.
going on for you, right? Okay. So now we're digging deeper and we see that too. And then it's like, well, you already answered this part, but my next point is like, so what are you curious about? But you already said it. I thought we were, you know, um,
Good. Thought we
good.
were
I thought we
good.
were different, you know. So now here's the other part. Why does it matter? Why does that
What?
matter? Why does it
Why?
matter if you're good with this person or not?
That's a great point. I guess, and it depends on the situation, but if we're going to continue, it matters because I thought we were building a future together.
Okay.
It
Okay.
matters because I like your ass.
There you go.
It matters,
Mm-hmm.
it
Mm-hmm.
matters because XYZ.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. There you go. And then you want to say, like, okay, so then you take that, it matters because this, it matters because that, right? If it has to do with another person, which in this case it does, you want to then open the line of communication, right?
Ooh.
And all those questions you just asked yourself, you gave yourself probably the first sentence or two or some type of outline for the conversation. Okay, so you can go into it and say, I really care about you. I saw us building a future
Mm-hmm.
together. Um, I've recognized some things within myself. When this happens, or when this happened, I feel jealous, right? So then you're opening that conversation and saying, I really care about you. This is how I feel. And then this is also what's happening right now. Being vulnerable is one of the biggest things when it comes to dealing with your shadow. Because again, your shadow, your saboteurs, they're put there to protect you. So if you create a comfort in that vulnerability, then they won't have to like rise up so hard and get you to do all this other crazy stuff, right? Because they're like, oh, wait, you're bringing me into the light. Like, I don't actually have to be in the shadow. Like, okay, I'm out here. Like, you're not feeling shame for being jealous.
Right.
Right. So then you have that conversation. And I think like no matter what happens in that conversation, you still brought it up. So the more you bring things up, the more you pull them up and pull them out of the shadows, the less dark they're going to be, right? And the more used to it you'll be. And eventually, with naming it so much and being able to speak about it, you take away power. You make it a little bit less, but it's not like it's going away. You're just identifying it.
And that takes away some of the intensity. So therefore, you're
Exactly.
not having these blow ups
There
like you
you
have
go.
before.
So you probably are not out, having all these drinks or making crazy decisions because you're trying to repress something. You've already dealt with the thing and you can move forward.
You can move with that fluidity. And something I like that you were saying was, even though I guess from my perspective, shadow work would be like more so focusing on things that you need to deal with and not really necessarily other people. What other people are for me or just in general are their mirrors.
Yeah.
You know, if we're just out in the desert by ourselves and we're like,
Yep.
oh man, I'm working on my patience and my jealousy, I feel great. But the moment you interact
Yeah.
with someone, that's the true test.
Yes. I love that you brought this up because you're so right about that. We won't actually know if we've grown from something until we have the opportunity to flex that muscle, to flex that skill. So if you're always in isolation, perfect example, being out in the desert, if you're always just like out in isolation by yourself, you actually won't know if you fix anything. There will be no way for you to know. Like,
Right.
no way.
You got to interact with the people. You got
You
to,
do.
whatever was your triggers, you got to like hit them up to
You
see
do.
how you react.
Yes.
And
100%.
it takes some boldness. It takes some courage. Like you're saying, we do have to find that comfort in
Yeah.
our what's the word you used for me? Help me out.
Which one? The
We
comfort in
have
our
in our space where we are doing our shadow work or with our saboteurs, excuse me.
Oh, saboteur. Okay. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, so we
I
have
was
to
like, what?
find okay. We have to find comfort within that area,
Right.
but before we get there, we have to challenge ourselves and be okay with not being comfortable at first.
There you go. That's the thing, settling in, or this is the term that I use, lean into discomfort.
Mm.
Lean into discomfort. It's funny. Our mutual friend that I was just talking about, Tiffany, she actually bought me that book years ago, Lean In, so long ago when it first came out. And but yeah, it is important to lean into discomfort. Anything that you're like, because eventually if you don't and you lean away from that discomfort, you're only allowing those things, those aspects of yourself to further grow and take charge. So there are some good examples of places that you can or people that you can kind of see this in. For example, like Harley Quinn, right? I know that this seems off the wall, but this
Oh, okay.
yeah,
I'm with
so
you.
if you think about it from a psychological perspective, the further you repress, we create fractures in our personalities, right?
Mm-hmm.
So people that have like multiple personality disorders, if anyone's ever seen like United States of Terror, have you ever seen that? It's an old show.
Oh,
It's
no,
okay.
I haven't before.
So I think it came on Showtime, and
Okay.
basically she had all these different personalities that would just like hop in, but it was because she had a certain trigger and they were coming up to try to protect her, right? And that happened from trauma and experiences, all that stuff. We can see the same thing in Harley Quinn. Having, because they say Harley Quinn was a therapist
Yeah,
before.
yeah. The
Yeah, she
comic
was,
books have her as a
yeah,
therapist prior
prior to her
teaming up.
relationship with the Joker.
Mr. J. Mr. J.
Exactly. Mr.
Daddy
J.
J.
Yeah,
Daddy J.
exactly. Exactly. But he really kind of like, first of all, ignited a piece of her that she had been repressing for so long. And
Ooh, yeah.
then, made her curious about it and things like that. But instead of learning how to kind of deal with it and let it go, Harley Quinn fell into her shadowy self, right? She fell
Mm-hmm.
into so she actually fractured, and that part of her took over, probably because she had had so many, traumatic experiences or
Mm-hmm.
disappointing experiences that she just pushed down, pushed down, pushed down. And that is actually really common for anyone who is studying psychology and therapy. Like those people, a lot of times you get curious because you went through so many things in your life that you want to study it, right? But I know that
Right.
psychologists are not all of them, but some
But
therapists be
they
the
got
ones.
a few splits, a few split
Yes.
personalities
Yes.
going.
Exactly. So we also see that in there was a movie called Split actually not that long ago, where someone had all these, different personalities. And you can also think of Dr. Jekyll,
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Hyde, I think is the one that's really, really big. You have the good light side of this person,
Yeah.
and then you have like the dark side that's bad.
And then what was that movie with Halle Berry when it was like Anna, she played like three different characters. Have you seen that? She had a split
No.
personality. I really
Hmm.
hope it was Halle Berry.
Yeah,
It
look it
was
up. Look it up. It's
it was
okay.
such a great movie.
Yeah, I don't know.
Un momento, guys.
You're good. You're good.
Frankie and Alice. Yes. Frankie and Alice. It's on Amazon. Such a great movie. I watched it years ago, so I don't remember exactly the plot, but I just remember Halle Berry played a woman who was split into two different characters, and she had a
Hmm.
trigger for why that happened and
Hmm.
what that went about. But she had to kind of work through some of those traumas to kind of understand why she was splitting in two different people. One side was Frankie, one
Wow.
side was Alice. And the two kind of met in the middle and kind of gave each other grace towards the end, I believe. But it was just very intriguing how all that happened and why, and just
Yeah.
the visual aspects of
That's so cool.
schizophrenia.
I've never seen that. And was her fracture rooted in like trauma or what was going on?
Girl, I couldn't tell you. It's been
You
so long.
forgot?
I
Okay, I'll just have to
forgot,
check
but
it out.
it's such a good movie for this topic. So I just had to mention it. Yeah, because it came out in like 2010, and girl, I was 3, so I do not remember
I'm just gonna write it down so I don't remember.
Frankie
Frankie
and
and
Alice.
Alice.
Yeah. Did you hear me though? I was like, it came out in 2010. I was 3. I'm lying, y'all.
I
Just
know.
you were like not even going to
I just
acknowledge
be
that
ignoring
movie.
you. And sometimes stuff you say, I'd be like, okay.
Anywho.
But okay, yeah. So yes, like sometimes that happens. If we continue to push things down, if we continue because you're only allowing your shadow to grow, it gets to a certain spot or a certain point where, you know, your shadow self can decide to take over. You have
I have
different
seen it
pieces
happen.
of you. Yeah, just like we have our higher self, we have our physical body, we have our spirit body, we have I feel like your emotional one could definitely be one, but then you
Hmm.
also have your light body, you also have your shadow. Your shadow is also there. I mean, it's connected to you. Anytime there's light, there's a shadow, and most things have a shadow. Even if you look around at inanimate objects, everything has a shadow. I mean, you can see
Yeah.
my yoga mat with a shadow, right? We all have it, it's attached to us. But so knowing that it's not going to really go away, it can just change in intensity or change in the way that you give it power or the way that you balance things out. But looking to eradicate it, like we were talking about earlier, which yes, I use that word. Yeah, looking to eradicate it usually only fuels that fire for it to
Yeah.
grow even more.
And
Yeah.
I think as long as we're just like not moving in fear, I
Hmm.
think that might help things out. in a lot of ways. For shadow work though, for someone
Mm-hmm.
who, maybe they find this a little woo woo,
Mm-hmm.
what's what's an avenue they might want to go to kind of get started in a
Mm-hmm.
light way? Because I know we have things like therapists, we have things like counselors.
Yeah.
Would you put shadow work in that realm, or
Mm-hmm.
would you put it in a separate realm, or do they go together?
Yeah, they go together. So if someone is going to therapy and being honest with their therapist,
Say it again.
if they're being honest, then they should naturally be able to work on some of those pieces of their shadow, right? The therapist is probably just not going to call it shadow. They're not going
Right.
to say those words, even though this is a psychological term and there's an archetype for it, the shadow archetype, right? So they could if they wanted to, but I would feel that most therapists probably aren't referring it to it like that. If someone goes in and they're being honest, though, they should be able to be speaking through the habits that they have, which if they're ones that they don't really want to have or the ones that are negatively impacting them or their relationships,
Mm-hmm.
that habit is probably tied to your shadow, the pieces of yourself that you're repressing, the pieces of yourself that you feel shameful about, the pieces of yourself you feel like you need to hide.
Right. I mean, I think the reason why I brought this up is because shadow work to me is very, it can be very deep, it can be very daunting at times. And the reason why I
Mhm.
love having assistants like a counselor or a therapist is
Yeah.
they help, I guess, emulate certain triggers you have. And
Mhm.
so when we have that awareness, then we can start doing the work on our own. Now that we are a
True.
little bit aware, we're like,
Yeah.
okay, this is my trigger. Why? And we start to think back. Maybe we can
Mhm.
do a meditation or
Mhm.
whatever have you. There's so many different aspects or exercises to get into the core of the triggers.
Yeah.
But I love, like for me, I loved going to my therapist
Mhm.
and her just kind of reiterating some things and from what I said, and then me
Mm.
able to put those dots together, say, oh my God, I did not know that about myself. That is a
Mm.
trigger. Let me go ahead and take that back with me after this session.
Right. Yeah.
And then you can improve upon that, or at least just be aware of, okay, that triggers me. So maybe I don't need to be in that environment right now until
Mhm.
I've worked through it. So it's all about just pointing the light, pointing the direction into the right place for you in that moment.
It is. And I think having that third party that really that can see you from an objective
Mhm.
place and not a trying to like get you, trying to get you, or there's going to be some type of reprimand from it. Putting yourself at ease, because again, what you're talking about, you just created safety again, right?
Ooh.
Remember, your saboteurs, your shadow, like it's there to protect you, right? So if you create safety around the feeling, then it won't have to emerge and be so intense all the time. Definitely having that third party saying, well, it sounds like this is what's going on, or maybe pay attention to this, or have you considered, hearing things like that when there's not a threat, it can help a lot. So that makes sense because you're not defensive more than likely with your therapist. Some people might be.
Um,
Yeah, I was like, some people might be.
no,
Now
no,
that
I
I
was gonna.
say it.
Nah, I think the right therapist will know how not to get you riled up, but sometimes you
Mhm.
do need to be pushed. So it's just a balance, and that
Yeah.
is the beauty of that profession.
For sure. I mean, no matter what someone chooses to do, whether you go to therapy or a shaman or you work on it by yourself, a big part of this is going to be getting curious. A big part of this is going to be asking questions because your your response, which is probably, something habitual, that is, oh my gosh, I lost my words.
I was just gonna say, you're
Oh, I got it. Go ahead.
go. No, you go. Let's get it.
Oh, I was just gonna say no matter what you're doing, you have to be questioning yourself, basically. So
Mm.
whether that's with a therapist or by yourself, because you're trying to address the root, not the symptom. right? And
Right.
when you just try to eradicate the symptom, if we think about even medical, care and things like that, that's not going to work. You got to get deep and down to the root. And that happens with being honest with yourself, questioning yourself, really taking the time to reflect and do that work. But that's what I was going to say. Sorry.
No, you're all good.
What were you thinking?
Literally forgot, but it
I
was.
know it happens.
Oh, I know. No, okay.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, yeah, what you're saying. How we have to question ourselves. I was gonna
Mhm.
say, I really like that because it opens you up, and something I've noticed because I've done some shadow work activities where I'm trying to get answer to a question. I might write it down in my journal and just kind of
Mhm.
meditate on it. And I might get the answer within that meditation session,
Mhm.
or it might come another day, another hour. But I was going to
Mhm.
say, when you're asking these questions about yourself, just be open to the answer and be flexible to
Mm.
when you get that answer because it might not be immediate.
Ooh.
And a lot of people
Wow.
get frustrated because it's not immediate. But some of these
Mhm.
times you might need your subconscious to process and to penetrate some of those blockades you have mentally
Mhm.
for you to receive that answer, to get your
Yeah.
clarity. So I
Mm.
just wanted to add that in there because I noticed that with me.
Yeah, no, that's a great ad. And I think that that's relevant too, because if you do ask yourself those questions and you don't know the answer, I do feel that next time you're faced with that same trigger, it's going to bring you closer to your answer because then you're going to feel it and it's going to be fresh in your mind. Oh my gosh, I was just asking myself about why this happens.
Hmm.
And I feel like this, right? So,
Exactly. And
yeah, I
not to
think
be
the
like
more
law of attraction, but when
no.
we are asking those questions, it
Mhm.
will be drawn to you.
Exactly. Or even if you switch it and say, thank you for showing me why this and show that gratitude up front before you get it, then you can see when it's delivered, right? So putting the message out there like I already have this information and then attracting it to come to you, but I
Hmm.
think it can work either way. So,
I love that because it's just like you're claiming your answer. It's just like,
yes.
I don't have it right now. It's just processing. So it's just
Mhm.
clearing up. It's just decoding right now, but I have it already.
Exactly. Yeah. And sometimes even if it hasn't gotten too crazy yet, there might be a certain person around you that maybe is triggering you. Or, we've talked about this in other podcasts. If there's someone you're hanging out with where you always got to be drinking, or you always got to be doing this, or
Huh?
you
Oh, yeah.
always, you know what I mean? You get around
Right.
them and maybe nothing's ever deep or nothing's whatever, but but it's bothering you in some way, right? So you're figuring out like why is my interactions with this person like this, or how am I being triggered to then have this type of behavior?
Hmm.
If I don't want to, if you're seeing that it's causing a dissonance with you, then it's more than likely something going on. So I think starting that questioning can be really helpful because that person might be reflecting something in you that you probably want to deal with that you just don't know about just yet.
Exactly. That you may be ignoring,
Mhm.
or they're literally just maybe a shit person.
That could be it too, honestly. That could be it too.
Because sometimes I've learned, yeah, I might be the problem, but your ass might be the problem too. So it just depends.
But also, what you were talking about earlier, if you're out in the desert, you're not going to be triggered, right? Everyone is brought, I don't care who it is, you're brought into people's lives or across people, even if you're just randomly in an elevator with someone for 30 seconds and they say something and it triggers you, right? Like that message was supposed to be delivered to you for some reason. All of our interactions happen for a reason. I've had things that happen, I'm sure you have too, that it just seems more than a coincidence. I was asking the universe to show me this, or I was thanking the universe for showing me this. Then you sent me this message through a different person, right?
Absolutely.
Why, or this is something I should be paying attention to. That comes up a lot too. So if you're noticing that. So example, there was a day that 3 times in that day I had heard the same line or quote. And the quote is walk by faith, not by sight. Right.
Mm.
And I had already been asking the universe certain things, like all asking, well, show me this, or what about this, or what about that? So I saw that quote one time in that day and I was like, okay, that's normal. Oh no, I heard it, I think in a song or something.
Oh,
I heard it and
okay.
I was like, huh, okay, interesting. And then I don't remember the second place I saw it. Maybe it was on the bumper sticker or something. I was like, huh, that's crazy because I just already heard that today. Then I went to my friend's house that I had been to so many other times, but I'm
Yeah.
sitting at her desk and I look to my right and she has something on the wall, like kind of behind her monitor-ish. So I never saw it
Uh-huh.
before. And it says, walk by faith, not by sight. And I'm like, and I told her, I was like, this is freaking me
Hey.
out. At this point, I've seen this 3 times. What is this trying to tell me? Right. So I just, what you were saying about asking the universe and like questioning and maybe it'll come later. You're so right. Because I had forgotten about a conversation that I had had between myself, my spirit guides, all of these things. And they were trying to give me this message. They were like, bitch, how many times are we going to have to show
I know, right? Like, it's right
how
here.
many times? Just pay look at it. We're giving it to you right here. And I was like, oh my gosh, it made so much sense at that point. So yeah, opening your eyes and recognizing.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it just takes some repetition for it to click.
Oh, for sure.
And it wasn't in your awareness at first. But now that it was, that's when you saw the
Right.
light.
Exactly. It freed me
Illumin
from the shadows. No.
illuminate your soul, baby. Yes.
um, so why did you have anything else before I
Move on?
push on? I don't want to skip anything.
No, you're good. I
Okay.
think my stuff will be with yours.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, like, why is it important to work on this, right? Like,
Mm.
I think I think generations before us were very much repressed. Very much repressed. Like
Ooh.
they
Yes.
didn't, it is what it is. They just weren't trying to, there's a lot more folks with smoking habits, with alcoholism that were, I'm sure everybody has them in their families and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, wasn't dealt with and it just kept happening. And that's how we just
Get
saw
these
the way to deal with things.
Yeah, and get these
Um,
generational curses as well.
right. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So a part of the beauty of this work is that breaking the generational curse. I feel like if you are continuing to operate from a place of your shadow taking over without you having like control, because again, this is coming from your subconscious, right? Clearly that's going to affect it's going to affect you and all of the relationships you have around you. So if your partner or your friends, and then if you have children, you're going to be passing down certain things or showing them how to operate the way you do in their developmental years.
Yep. Indirectly or directly, they'll learn either way.
They will learn it and they will start doing it too. So why work on this, right? So that's one of them.
Okay.
The other thing is if you, and again, these are something I have my notes on, so I don't want to forget, but when you ignore your shadow, again, it grows, right? So we may start doing things involuntarily. Like if it gets so big. So you were talking about the Holly
Yeah.
Berry movie, schizophrenia, things like that, right?
Yeah.
Her shadow probably got really big and she
Too
just
too big.
too big and it fractured, right? Like I was talking about earlier. The other thing is a lot of times this is where depression comes in for
Mm-hmm.
folks, right? So
Mm-hmm.
depression happens when you feel like there's a way you should be, but you're not. That's your shadow talking. That's your saboteur talking. I should be like this. I should be doing this, but I'm not because you're forming a lot of shame around those ideas of how you should be. And it's when you have a dissonance between your walking life and what you might want, right?
And you're
Anxiety can be the
focusing
same way. Go
and
ahead.
you're focusing on that distance between those two, I guess, frequencies or places. So
Right.
yeah.
Exactly. So that could happen too. Did you have something?
No.
Are you sure?
I mean,
Okay.
I have questions, but like I'm just trying to make sure they're topic appropriate. Like, we good, girl. Like,
Okay. Okay.
we good.
Another thing is a lot of people that I have experienced in my personal life, they sometimes say things that they may not have said. Right?
What you
Have you ever
mean?
heard,
What's an example?
Have you ever been in a conversation with someone and they might say something from a place of anger or from a place of jealousy or from a place of
Oh.
frustration, right? Because they're not consciously dealing with these things and you're keeping them repressed. So when you have a big emotional response to something, like let's say if you were jealous, for example, because we've just been using that the whole time, and it's a partner, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe maybe you're gonna tell your partner they ain't shit with they hoe ass this and that, blah, 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 right? And then
Yeah. Maybe
and you're
I
like,
might have
dang,
said that. Yeah.
maybe you're like, dang, maybe they wouldn't have been able to really get me out of my character in that way if I had otherwise dealt with this, instead of allowing it to grow and be so big within me.
Wow.
Not Steven
Then,
reflecting on life.
yeah, I don't. I mean, I know we had to edit this episode, but like, I'm gonna be looking back, like, let me get my notebook out because, yeah, I mean, that's deep. I've had experiences where I've been with partners where
Mhm.
they've triggered, I guess, some of my shadow aspects, my saboteurs,
Yeah.
and some parts I was aware of, some parts I weren't, and then somehow we have like a big blowout, and then I come back like a day later, I was like, wow, I kind of went. I don't really remember like going so hard and crazy, and then
Yeah.
you look at the text message or talk to that individual, and they're like, yeah, you kind of went
Yep.
left, and I was
Yep.
like, oh shit, I did. I mean, I
Mm,
felt valid because that's how I was expressing, but had I been aware of that before, then maybe they couldn't have gotten all that heat.
right. Yeah.
Was
No,
it deserved? Maybe.
probably. So it's like, yeah, it could have been. It could have very well
It could have
been.
been, but maybe not to that intensity. So I
For
will take
sure.
some ownership
Yeah,
on that.
that's good.
Yeah.
And you brought up something else that's important too. You're like, you go back and look at text messages and some things you may have forgotten. Some things you might not even write because you said it in not in a rage, but you were in a different state. And that's what happens when your ego separates from your shadow. So your ego, again, that's going to be your outward. That's what has the most light on it that people are seeing all the time. And that's your conscious self.
Yeah.
So usually consciously we can rationalize a lot better, right? When
Hmm.
your ego separates from your shadow and your shadow's just like, oh, I'm up. Steven put me in the driver's seat. Yeah, what's up?
Yeah.
Then the Twitter fingers be going off, right? Then you're
Right.
texting like, and this and that and this
Let's
and
go.
that.
Let's
Yeah.
go. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So I feel like that's definitely a great point too, that a part of doing the work is so you're not creating those splits within
Hmm.
yourself all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why you get those drunken rages and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yep. Another thing is, of course, if you don't deal with this, any type of persistence with shame, guilt, envy, jealousy, those are all very low vibrational frequencies, right?
Hmm.
And with that, because you're the one carrying it and the shadow gets heavier and heavier, that means that it's at a detriment to your self esteem. So, a lot of people that carry around these really big shadows and that have, maybe some harmful habits also have low self esteem.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah. So, that's another thing too. A part of shadow work is working on your self esteem and your self worth and the way that you value yourself, all of those things, because then you're not living with shame and guilt.
Exactly. You're not letting those emotions run your life. So,
Exactly.
are you saying basically shadow work is a journey to self-love?
It can be the way you said that. A journey to self-love. I mean, it can be, a part of that. Yeah, for sure.
I just say that because to work on these aspects, you got to have some
Mm-hmm.
kind of love for yourself because you're wanting to
Mm.
improve.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think by default, by you just even being curious or aware and then
Yeah.
saying, maybe I should do something about it.
Right. No, I think that that's true.
You know, because
I
you're
think that
filling
it's
your
true.
own cup. Yeah.
Yeah, you are.
Thank you for correcting
Cup
yourself.
runneth over for sure. It's running over. It's overfloweth. But yes, we cannot even see it. It's
It's a
blurred.
water bottle. I know it's blurry, but
Is it a water bottle? Could have been anything.
I know it's not nothing sexual, guys. I don't do that.
That's fine. But see, right there in that moment, were you feeling shame about if you do,
Hell no. Y'all know
Okay,
I'm a
good.
freak. No, I'm just kidding. Nothing wrong with being a freak as long as it's consensual.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, yes. Consent. You got to ask consent. Even for the
Yeah.
smallest things, you got to be like, can I do this? I might, even if you see something on someone and you want to like correct it. Do you remember how in the military, well, they were supposed to, they would ask for permission to touch you? Did they ever do that with y'all?
They did in some instances. Most of the time,
Okay.
yes. I would say about 85%.
Okay, because yeah, they would when we had our uniform inspections.
Yeah, they would have to get up close and
Yep.
personal, touching the girls.
You were standing there and they would be going around the way they'd be walking and stuff, and they turn to you and then they're face to face and they're doing a little inspection, and they might say like
Hmm.
permission to touch, and I would be like permission, whatever. And then they would like correct my little ribbon or fix
Yeah.
something or make sure
Take off
something's.
a string, all this for like
Oh
the most
yes.
little shit.
We
Yeah.
had to carry around them little scissors too. Did y'all
Oh
have those
yeah.
little sewing
Hell
kits?
yeah. I had it in the pocket, because in uniforms you having 55 pockets, so you can
Man,
put anything in that. Yeah.
utility pants right there. We was
Batman ain't
ready.
got nothing on us.
Nothing. We was ready. We had pockets all on the top and the pants. There were so many
Right.
pockets. I loved it. You got pins, everything you need, all in those
7
pockets.
minimal pockets everywhere.
That was amazing. Amazing. Good times. Good times. But yes, so consent is really
Oh, we
big.
did all that.
That's why, yeah, we got into that from consent.
Consent. Yes. Message received,
Yes,
guys.
consent. But then another big one too is if you don't deal with the shadowy pieces of yourself and they continue to be rambunctious, that would definitely affect your relationships. More than likely all of your relationships, especially the ones that you're trying to get deep in. So, yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm,
Any other thoughts?
so I want to ask, so
Yeah.
is shadow work ever truly done?
Mm. Mm. I want to say no. I don't think it's done. I feel like we are constantly in these internal conversations with ourselves and questioning. And shadow work is about the ability to bring your consciousness into the conversation and to really make yourself aware of what you're truly feeling and then dealing with that in a healthy manner. Right? Like that's really what shadow work is. That's kind of like saying, are we really ever done learning how to love? You know? No.
Not really.
We're just doing it
Uh,
all the time.
yeah.
It's about consistency. Same thing with gym habits or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, we need to be consistent in that work. And the more that you do it, the more that you create a healthier habit, and then it's second nature.
Okay. So
Yeah.
there's what I'm hearing is there's a season for shadow work, but that
Mhm.
season is going to be coming around often.
I mean, yeah, I think when you start the work, it can feel really big. It can feel like a lot. It can feel like something that you're needing to think about often, but it can come in a season, yeah. But it's going to be there, really every day for the most part because you're just like most things in our lives, we have to choose to be different, right? You choose a different action, and that's going to be a part of it. So you can think, you can challenge yourself, you can say, okay, I want to be better. But until you choose differently, nothing's going to change. So you're making those choices every day.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I agree that I was just kind of wanting to kind of play devil's advocate about
I
the
feel it.
question. Yeah.
It's okay. We're
So,
good. That's okay. I'll happily answer. Yeah. What are your
I
thoughts?
mean, I really like this topic and
Hmm.
this conversation. It's been amazing.
Yeah.
Um, I don't have anything else on
Okay.
this though.
Well, tell me about what you're grateful for today
Yeah.
then.
Okay. Well, I'm grateful for so much, like I always say, but to specify it down, um,
What are you doing?
You know,
Okay.
we're recording this
In our season?
in our season. Yes.
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 We are Aries. This is a Aries team podcast, you
Let's
know.
go. Let's go.
But we love everyone just the same. But
Some more
I'm
than
just
others.
oh yeah, for sure.
But yeah.
Geminis. Oh, let me stop.
Ah, that's funny.
No, I got a few besties that are Geminis, but um let me move on before I dig this hole even
Okay.
further. But
Okay.
I am grateful for just the real new year, the spring. I
Mm-hmm.
have been just enjoying going outside, even
Mm-hmm.
though there's a lot of pollen. I don't have any allergies anymore.
Hmm.
It's nice. Like I the last 2 years I've
Nice.
had some like springtime allergies, but I've been
Yeah.
out there hiking,
Wow.
touching pollen. It's just like gone. I don't need any medicine. So
Wow.
I don't know. My body
Okay.
has. So I'm just grateful just not to have to do any of that. I can just
Yeah.
enjoy and be me like I used to be as a kid. I don't know why
Oh.
I get allergies as an adult, but it's gone
Hmm.
now. I also don't have any more dog allergies either.
Really?
I was allergic to dogs for like a good 2 years
Mm-hmm.
randomly,
Mm-hmm.
get hives and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
now I'm
Just
good.
doesn't happen.
I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know what happened, but I will take it.
Yeah. Just some newness for
Yeah,
you.
exactly. So,
Oh, that's
all
nice.
that aside, what are you grateful for today?
I don't want to steal yours, but I feel like it's the same. I mean, the spring, I always feel more like this resonates with me more. You know, the
Yeah,
spring, the newness. Yes, it's our season. That's helpful too, but I just believe at the beginning of the year is really spring and not January. Like January,
agreed.
everything's still really low
In the
and
depth of winter, that how is
yes.
that a
How
renewal
is it
moment?
renewal? Right.
Biologically, it doesn't make sense. So I say we protest New Year's, quote unquote, and make the new year April 1st.
There we go.
Because
Or
April
or in
fools
March.
who? Oh yeah, we can do March. I
We
think on my
can,
calendar it actually says spring starts in March 20
yeah, it's
something.
like the 21st is the equinox.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, the 20th, 21st, usually around there, just depending. But that's when I think the new year should really be. Um,
Agreed.
but we got these calendars, so whatever. We
You
just
know.
follow their distinction of time just so we make sure we have our affairs in order,
Yep,
you
gotta make
know?
sure you at your appointments on time.
Right. Yeah. So, but yes, I'm grateful for the spring. I'm grateful for the newness. I'm also grateful for so much new opportunity and things coming up.
Mm,
I feel like that's wonderful as well. So, yeah,
perfect. Well, awesome.
what a great time. Thank you all for listening to us today.
Yeah, thank you so much. I forgot to mention, but
Mm,
I have this book here by
mhm.
a Kelly Bramlett. It's called
Oh,
Shadow Work Journal and Guide for
mm,
Beginners. Y'all can't see it because it's
love
blurry, but this
it.
is the outline.
Maybe
We'll
put it
have
in
it
front of your
linked.
mic or something. Will it work? There you go.
Oh, I have blurry. It's messy back there, so I just had to
It's
keep it blurry.
okay.
But I just wanted to briefly mention this book because my mother and my sister actually have been diving into shadow work and just kind of
Mm,
incorporating that in their like spiritual journey or just
yeah.
personality journey.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been working with this book by Miss Kelly,
Mm.
Miss Kelly B, not you.
Mm.
But
Even though my name is Kelsey, but that's another topic for another day.
yeah, inside jokes are crazy today. But I like the book because it gives like a further breakdown of what journal or shadow work is. And
Mm-hmm.
then like, it gives you like half of it's that, like information, and then other half is just a journal where you can go through these prompts and then
Mm.
based on how you're feeling or what is being said, you'll write it out and you'll get some answers on yourself. Might have to take your
Wow.
breaks and different downtimes with it, but I thought it was a
Yeah.
great tool for those who maybe find this overwhelming or new.
Mm-hmm.
And as you evolve, your way of doing shadow work and working on yourself may evolve as well. But I love this book because I think it's a great starting point.
That's
So
wonderful. Thank you. Resources
I
are always welcome.
so I will tag that. But other than that, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Love everyone,
Yeah.
or at least I hope to. But
All right, y'all.
not
We'll
for
see you next time. Ciao.
later.
Thanks for listening. If today's kickback nourished your soul, please be sure to subscribe, tell a friend, or leave a review.
And don't forget to check out the description to find out how to connect with us on social media.